Amenities Commission to order at 6:31. Mr. Vinke, can you read the roll?
Yes, Commissioner Caldwell,
Here.
Commissioner Lang,
Here.
Commissioner Galassi,
Here.
Commissioner McCauley,
Here.
and Vice Chair Morocco.
Here. And you should note that the chair is not here today.
The chair is absent.
Okay. If we can stand to do the salute to the flag. And Commissioner Lang, would you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Now we're on the part of approving the order of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the order of the agenda?
I move.
to approve. Okay, second?
Aye. Or I'll
Okay.
say a second. Sorry.
Okay, anybody opposed to approving the order of the agenda? Okay, hearing none, the order agenda is approved. Blue folder items, I believe we have 2 items today, if you want to introduce them.
Yes. Let's see. We have a blue folder item regarding an update on the report of the Minor Alterations Subcommittee meeting on March 7th. And then we also have a blue folder item regarding the Volunteer Acknowledgement Subcommittee's recommendation, L1.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to receive and file the blue folder items?
A motion to receive and file?
Yes. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, anybody opposing receiving and filing? Okay, hearing none, the blue folder items are received and filed. Moving on to the consent calendar. We have 4 items on the consent calendar. F1 is the affidavit for posting. F2 is the report from the Minor Alteration Subcommittee. F3 is the Library Director's report. And F4 is the Public Amenities Commission items. Is there anybody want to pull any of the items?
We'll pull F2, please.
Okay. And I'm going to pull F3 and F4. So can I get a motion to approve F1 on the consent calendar?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, anybody opposed? Well, before I do that, is there any public comment?
There are no e-comments or attendees for this.
Okay. And for our guests, if you do wish to comment, just raise your hand and we'll recognize you. Okay, so is there any opposition to approving the affidavit of posting? Okay, hearing none, that's approved. Then we're going to go to the excluded consent calendar, F2. Commissioner Galassi, you wanted that pulled?
Yes. So it's my understanding you have a presentation for us this evening.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner Galassi, members of the commission, Sean Scully, the planning manager. And it's unusual for us to do something like this, but Andrew's been doing a lot of work and research in pulling together items that we can bring the Public Amenities Commission as a whole up to speed on the preservation ordinance and the procedures and all the aspects of the work that this body's going to have to do. So I'm going to turn it over to Andrew. He put together a real brief presentation, and it basically breaks down the 3 different types of projects that go to the different levels of review. The staff level review projects, the subcommittee, minor alteration subcommittee type projects, and then the projects that come to the full commission. So with that, I'll turn it over to Andrew.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Andrew Svitek. I'm a senior planner with the planning division. This will just be a general overview of the city of Redondo's City of Redondo Beach's certificate of appropriateness process under the preservation ordinance. Just to start off with, there's two processes that the commission participates in. One is the landmarking, which is when a property owner wants to designate their property. And then there's this process, which is when a property owner wishes to make changes to their property. There's also one for designating a historic district that seldom comes up. And sometimes those processes are combined. If you recall, we had the Avenue F project in November or December, which was a request that involved both a landmarking and a certificate of appropriateness for the same property. So to start off with, what requires certificate of appropriateness? So any landmark properties require one, or at least a review for a COA. We'll get into which projects don't need a COA, but these are the categories of properties that we have to analyze. So any landmark properties, any properties located in a historic district, and the city has 2 of those districts. And the third category is any potentially significant resources, which is based on the city's historical survey, which gave different letter grades to historic properties ranging from A, B, C, and D. So if a property falls in the A or B category on the survey, we can potentially review that as well. Now, there are 3 types of review of proposed work at properties that we covered in the last slide. The first level of review is planning staff review. So staff is always on the lookout when there's applications for permits that come in to flag any potential impacts on the landmark property. Well, we review if it's a landmark property, or we check the survey to see if it's listed in the survey as an A or B. So staff does this on an everyday basis, reviewing permits and counseling people that come in. And also just to note, a lot of owners of historic landmarks, they're familiar with their Mills Act obligations. So a lot of people reach out to us ahead of time. So part of what we do is educational. We also get changes in ownership. So we get frequent calls from real estate brokers when they want to list a property that's a historic landmark or listed on the survey. So we do a lot of education every day at the planning level. So the next level of review would be the minor alteration subcommittee. And we just had a meeting of that this month, and that's why we're taking this opportunity to go over this. And we'll get into the classes of projects that fall into its purview. And then we have the full Public Amenities Commission. So the staff review level involves basically 3 categories of projects: exterior alterations that are not visible from the public right-of-way. The second category is all interior alterations. And the third category is ordinary maintenance and repairs. And the basic standard here is like for like. And that includes aesthetics and type of material. So things like repainting, replacing windows or doors, re-roofing, and other types of replacements. The next level of review is the minor alterations subcommittee review. And this gives you an idea of types of projects that would go before the minor alterations subcommittee. Things like changing in roofing materials, changes to color schemes, masonry materials, stucco, additions of doors and windows, new fences or walls and gates. changing to accessory uses like pools and porches and patios, signs if it's a commercial building, fences and even landscaping. And these would be reviewed by the subcommittee. And if the subcommittee decides that this would benefit from the full commission's review, they can defer to the full commission. And finally, we have the full Public Amenities Commission review. So this is basically all exterior alterations that are not defined as minor alterations. So structural additions, new structures, and demolitions. And one of the reasons that we have this minor alteration subcommittee process is that it's just a more informal process or environment for staff and the commission members to meet with the applicants and go over options. And the subcommittee can also meet more frequently, and it's less time requirement on the full commission. And the last slide is a summary of types of projects and which process we would use for review of that request. So that's basically that's basically our process here for reviewing certificates of appropriateness. And we just wanted to take this opportunity, since we just held our minor alteration subcommittee meeting, and thought it would be a good chance to go over this, and we're available for any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, I have one. Can we get a copy of the summary slide that you just did? That would be helpful to be part of our resource materials.
Definitely.
Okay. And as I understand it, becoming a landmark is not necessarily the same as getting a certificate of appropriateness, because landmarks can include like Wilderness Park and the wetlands and other things like that. Doesn't have to include that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay.
So when we have an item come to the minor alteration subcommittee, it may be one or two of these items, but anything more than that would be probably better suited for the full commission if we have a number of smaller items but all together. Is that correct?
I mean, I think we'd review it by case. Certainly anything that affects the front elevation or massing.
Mm-hmm.
I think aesthetics are important, but anything that's towards the rear of the property would have less importance. So we would screen it out, but sometimes the subcommittee may decide that it would warrant further review, so.
I have a question. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the certificate of appropriateness for landmarking? So basically, are we talking about like residences that want to be landmarked? That would fall under this, but everything else like a park or that would not, we would not see that. You would just see that, or?
Well, let me clarify that. So landmarking is the process to get your property designated and recognized as a historic resource officially. And once you're designated, then any further work requires a certificate of appropriateness. So it's kind of one precedes the other.
Okay.
Now, it gets a little more complicated because potentially significant resources that have been identified in the survey could potentially also come through this process, even though they haven't been landmarked. But for the most part, most of what we do is landmark properties that property owners have decided to voluntarily landmark, and based on the Mills Act contract, have to maintain in an appropriate manner. And that's why we issue the certificate of appropriateness.
Okay, and then I have another question. So if a property has been rated an A or B resource and they come to planning and they're not a landmark, do you give pushback on their plans if they're to completely sort of scrub the historical features? Or do you not have the ability to do that unless they're landmarked?
No, we have full control that they are subject, if they're an A or B, subject to the preservation ordinance. So if
Okay.
they want to do something, they'd be processed for a certificate of appropriateness.
Gotcha.
And if it's something you're describing, it would come to this entire body.
Okay,
So it doesn't have to be landmarked to come here.
okay.
It's those, as you had that slide that showed, there's 3 categories.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you could bring that up. It's the landmark properties,
Oh, I see, okay.
obviously, but properties located in a historic district, that could be another one. And then the most common one we get are the potentially significant resources, the A or B. Because we have a lot of those properties, they're not landmarked, but they want to come in and do something. So they have to get, in order to do whatever it is they're planning to do, they have to get a certificate of appropriateness. And if it's falls into those other categories, it's in the back, not visible, falls into the minor alteration subcommittee purview type, we would queue it up for that. If it is more substantive, we can see it, then that would come to the whole body.
Okay. And, oh, go, sorry.
I'm sorry. Go
No.
ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask one more question. So in order for a resident to take advantage of I think it's the Mills Act, the reduced
Correct.
property taxes, do they need to be landmarked or they just need to be in a rated historic property?
They would need to be landmarked.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, gotcha. All right.
So can you just clarify how the process of creating a historic district occurs? Because I understood it to be that it has to be, or it comes from somebody living within a particular area of a grouping of already landmarked homes. But can the commission agendize looking at something like that?
Yeah, the language is not 100% clear on that. It seems to, and we're researching it now to see if the city can actively pursue, let's say, a neighborhood that has a number of A and B designated properties, to propose and then move to this body of course, after consulting with and notifying all the property owners, if we can get a historic district form. So it's kind of, it could be adjacent or a bunch of property owners in a neighborhood with, historic resources, A or B, or even something less. Because if you know the Garnett properties, most of those homes are all C-rated. However, and this is where we're digging in to see if they could pursue a historic district if they're not A or B. So we'll be able to bring back some more information on that. I know that that's an issue for this body, and you're asking that question, and we're kind of asking it too. And it seems like the city can move it forward in some cases, and in other cases, it's the property owners.
Right.
So
Because I'm recalling that, and Commissioner Caldwell may recall this as well, we had looked at, there were several businesses on Catalina, where Catalina Coffee is, and
right.
what is it, the
Yeah, the
liquor
Catalina
store?
Coffee. Yeah,
Dry
that was
cleaner?
the
Can't remember
village development.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we did create a historic district there, so those storefronts can be protected. And that initiated with us, with the commission.
So when it came to you, I wasn't part of those hearings, but I know
Right.
it had to come to the
Yeah.
Preservation Commission before it went to the Planning Commission. And so they weren't proposing it to be a historic district, but then when the Preservation Commission met on it, it became, it was discussed and then determined, based on the input of the Preservation Commission to make a historic district out of it.
Yes, it's something like that.
Something
It was-
like that.
it was a
Okay,
long
that's
time
interesting.
ago, like
Yeah, okay.
2.5 years ago, so.
The Garnett Carnelian properties, there is a record from the 90s about them becoming historic district.
Oh, okay.
And the whole application, which was sponsored by the Historical Society. There's a little carve out on part of it. It's like a
Okay.
Lego block, but it is out there. I pulled it this last weekend because I like to be more proactive with this stuff
Yeah.
as far as, because the way I understand it, you don't necessarily have to apply for the Mills Act. That's the voluntary part of it. And they have all the contracts associated with that on the city's website. So you can actually see it. They did it in mass on a couple of them. So to me, from what I'm getting is the landmarking is completely different than the Mills Act. And so we have a potential historic district that came from last month's meeting. And having now walked that area, it's probably something we should be looking at. Your comment, by the way, about changing the character of the neighborhood was spot on. So I would love to be able to have you enable us to be more proactive with regards to that kind of stuff. Because I'm seeing in my neighborhood a bunch of 50-plus-year-old houses being demolished. And I would love to be able to say, hey, city, bring it to the minor alteration subcommittee first, and they can take a look at it and then decide if it's something that should be presented to the commission as a whole, because by the time you deal with it, the property is demolished. One of the ones that comes to mind is there was a 95-year-old guy who was living in the area, and he died, and for next thing you know, the house is demolished. So, but it had some history behind it, because I've talked to him before about it, so.
Yeah, it's tricky. Our authority stops at the A or B in terms of applying the preservation ordinance and then, landmarking a property, then subsequent potential Mills Act, or requiring certificates of appropriateness for demolitions, et cetera. We don't have the authority now, just because it's an old home, to exert the preservation ordinance regulations on those structures.
I'm not sure that's 100% correct based on this class I took last week, but
There is a caveat.
Your historical resource survey is over a quarter century old, and the standard is 5 years. So you have a lot of properties that have now come into the category and needs to be addressed before they all disappear.
Yeah. There's that, and the council it's in their strategic plan to update the city's historic resource survey. And then there's also CEQA, which does have historic resource issue areas that are analyzed. So there is the potential that a CEQA, most of a demolition of a home, for example, though, is exempt from CEQA. But there could be some records that would indicate otherwise, and we could pull in the purview of CEQA to then trigger the city's preservation ordinance. It's very rarely done, but there is that element as well.
It needs to be updated, because
Yeah.
even the B ratings may not be B ratings anymore.
No, understood. And so, that's the council has that on the city's list of strategic plan items. So we've got budget for it. So now it's a matter of just getting it onto the priority list for the department to start to execute that. And you guys will be a big part of that when it goes.
I also wanted to add that the ratings, they're a good starting point, but property owners have the ability to submit historical evaluation reports that are prepared by architects who specialize in historic preservation. And those reports can decide that it's not really an A and B, because A and B has to be qualified to be a historic landmark. And so some may say, well, it's really a C or D, and it was misclassified, and they'll give reasons for that. And so that would mean that the city would need to delist it, list it lower, which would then allow for potential demolition. Or some people can have a C or D rated property and ask for landmark designation. And if the commission finds it meets the criteria, then it can be landmarked. We have quite a few C and D rated properties that have been landmarked.
Do you have a question? Anybody else have questions? Okay, do you have an addition to the report? Because I know that there were some materials that were submitted from your committee.
We had 2 letters that were sent to the homeowners as a result of our subcommittee meeting,
Okay.
and they were included in the,
I think the blue folder, was that the blue folder?
it was,
That's correct.
yeah, in the
That was the blue
folder, yeah.
folder items, yes.
Are there any public comment? Anybody, do you guys have any questions about that? You can come up to the microphone if you want. You don't have to introduce yourself, but if you want to, you can.
My name's Scarlett. So just to clarify, the last historical survey then was how long ago?
I believe 1999.
Oh, okay.
It's actually on the city's website if you want to check it out.
Okay, yeah, just for clarification in my notes. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, any other public comments?
There are no e-comments or attendees for this item.
Okay, can I get a motion to receive and file the committee's report as well as the presentation as part of that?
Motion to receive and file.
Okay, I got a motion and from 2 people, so I'll take one as a motion, one as a second. Is there any objection to receiving and filing this report?
No.
Hearing none, sorry, we were just getting something on the screen. Hearing none, then it's received and filed. And we'll move on to the next excluded consent calendar item, and that's receive and file the library director's report. And I pulled that. I wanted you to have an opportunity to, I know your report has something about it, but give us a little update on Open Plus.
Yeah, definitely. So, we're making some progress in it. The sensors have been replaced on the interior, exterior. The system is in test mode as it states. One of the minor logistics is we're going to have the vendor come out and look at it again. The door closure time is a little bit longer than we would like. So not to get too much in the nitty gritty, but we have an automatic door at the main library and it's about 12, 15 seconds to close. So the one at North is about 30 seconds. And if you're doing mitigated or metered access, so to speak, you would rather have it within the rules of, the building code, certainly in ADA. So we'd have to refer to folks on that. But if we could make that timing a little bit shorter, we think we could probably deter piggybacking and remove the onus off of people having to keep an eye behind them and see if somebody's coming up to access the library. So that's one of the minor logistics we're hoping to kind of tighten up, but we are testing it with staff. And since we got the sensors installed, one just funny anecdote was that logistically for the building, there's a staff door that's pretty close to that swinging door. And so staff that work there regularly weren't necessarily used to Open Plus, so they would leave their staff door open. And it turned out that the sensors were so sensitive, they were picking up the motions of the staff within the workroom that were busy working, putting up books before we were open. So the doors were just swinging wildly, and so one of our very astute staff members that works there regularly said, I think if we close this door, we won't have that problem anymore. So the sensors have been fixed. We've mitigated the wild door flinging issues. And now we're working a little bit on the timing, but, we will be testing it. And I think we've definitely made a lot of progress on it. So thank you.
Okay, and then the other question, have you picked a date for the trivia night yet?
I'll have to get back to commission on that. I think we're looking at early May. We have another meeting coming up to work out again, logistics. I think we have the presentation set. I think it's going to be very educational, informative. We're working on how to, we envision having about 6 teams. And so if organizations or groups want to sign up as a team, they're like 5 to 6 member teams. But then as we understand, there will be individuals that want to participate solo so they could be part of a team. We're working on logistics, so that would work. And then anybody who wanted to show up and just watch and learn and observe could do that as well. So we'd have like an audience thing. So we're working out, we've talked to some other libraries that have done this, so we're making some final tweaks to it, but we hope to have that information out soon. But Douglas and Ed have put a lot of work into making it an entertaining and educational event. And hopefully it'll be the first of many, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
You may want to consider broadcasting it.
Yes, absolutely.
Content
Thank you.
will be good. People will yell at their TVs.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, are there any other questions about F3?
No.
Okay, hearing none, can I get a motion to receive and file the library director's report?
I'll make a motion to receive and file the library director's report.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second. Any public comment?
There are no public comments for this.
Okay. Are there any objections to receiving and filing the library director's report? Hearing none, it's received and filed. Now we move on to the minutes. I pulled that one. We have a definite problem with the minutes on this one. We gained a Commissioner Gaddis. We had a person who was speaking, the architect, that said he was on the planning commission when I believe he said he was on the preservation commission. He actually was the chair of that commission. I'm opining on things that I don't know why that shows up over there. And I have a note here that actually what really, Commissioner Lang, I want to thank for spotlighting it. So we have a motion that actually what got transcribed in here is not the motion. There's some missing words on it. And there's a whole discussion in the playground design for Franklin Park that just kind of got left out too. So I'm going to recommend that we table this until it can get cleaned up. I will volunteer to help whoever's doing it to clean it up, just so it gets through a lot quicker and there's no problems. But I've already watched the video at least once.
We'll bring it back next meeting, and we'll clean it up.
Okay. Is there I made a motion, but is there a second to table it for next month? Are there any other corrections that some people want to bring up? Nope. Okay. So then, can I get a second at least?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Is there any is there any public comment?
There are no public comments for this.
Okay. Are there any objections to receiving and filing the public amenities, to table the minutes from the February 12th, 2025 meeting? Is there any objection? Actually, I should just do a roll call vote on that one. Can we do a roll call vote on that?
I'm sure we can. Commissioner Caldwell.
Yes.
Commissioner Lang.
Yes.
Commissioner Galassi.
Yes.
Commissioner McCauley.
Yes.
Vice Chair Morocco.
Yes, and so it's tabled. Okay, now we are moving, we've went through the excluded consent calendar items. We're moving on to public participation on non-agenda items. This section's intended to provide members of the public with the opportunity to comment on any subject that does not appear on this agenda for action. This section is limited to 30 minutes. Each speaker will be afforded 3 minutes to address the commission. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once. Written requests, if any, would be considered first under this section. So are there any written requests?
There are no written requests.
Do either of you want to say something to the commission? It could be about anything doesn't have to be on any of the topics we're talking about. Okay, and I don't see them moving. Anybody online or anything like that?
There's nobody online.
Okay, so we're done with public participation on non-agenda items. We have no ex parte communications. We have no public hearings. We have nothing continued from the previous agendas, which brings us to item L, items for discussion prior to action. And the first one is item L1, discussion of possible action regarding the Volunteer Acknowledgement Subcommittee's recommendation to formally recognize Matthew McCauley and Carl Leach for their volunteer service. And who's going to give the report? Okay.
So good evening, Commission. Before I jump into the report, I just want to note that although there's no financial gain from this item, there's really no financial interest at all. Commissioner McCauley will be recusing himself because of his relation to one of the applicants. So he will be back as soon as this item is over.
Is that the son?
It is, yes.
I thought it was him for a minute.
Okay, so if I know it's been a few months since we talked about it, but the commission does have a subcommittee called the Volunteer Acknowledgement Subcommittee, and this was a carryover subcommittee from the Parks and Recreation Commission. And the purpose of this subcommittee is for any volunteer efforts in the city to be recognized if they are something that benefits any of the parks and green spaces throughout the city. And so we do have 2 applications, one for Matthew McCauley and another for Carl Leach. And the way that this process works is that our subcommittee, which includes Commissioners Rowe and Caldwell, will review the applications as we receive them. If they review the application and feel that the applicant is worthy of formal acknowledgement, it is the requirement for the commission to review that application as well as the recommendation of the commission before the commission itself will formally acknowledge the volunteers. So this acknowledgement comes from the commission. The subcommittee is essentially just that middle person to initially vet that volunteer service. And so on the item tonight, as I stated, we have Matthew McCauley. He was nominated for his work with the Redondo Sunset Champions League, which is a special Little League program that is provided for children with special needs, and he really helped spearhead that program. And then we have Carl Leach, and he is nominated for all of his volunteer efforts with the South Bay Parkland Conservancy. Included with your report is both of their applications, as well as the supplemental subcommittee recommendation form, which is really just the affirmation that the subcommittee reviewed it and is recommending the commission to consider the acknowledgement. And so again, tonight, all we are asking the commission is to review the applicants. Let us as staff know if you do believe that we should acknowledge them. If you do, we will invite the applicants to a subsequent meeting and the commission can formally acknowledge them. We do provide a certificate. In the past, we were providing some little tabletop surfboards that said, volunteer acknowledgement. We still have them, but they unfortunately say Parks and Rec Commission on it. So I don't know if we'll be continuing to use those. We will look to replace them, but I don't know the timing of that. So just want to let you all know that that's essentially how this process works. So with that, I'll turn it over to you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any that you have.
Anybody?
I don't have any questions. I read the article on Matthew and was incredibly moved. It's an amazing program that he's spearheaded and put together, and he definitely deserves acknowledgement.
Yeah, you definitely need a surfboard for him.
And Carl as well.
Anybody else have any questions?
No.
Okay, so you need us to basically say yes to this and,
Yes.
okay. Is there a motion to recognize Matthew McCauley and Carl Leach for their volunteer service?
Yeah, I move to recognize Matthew McCauley and Carl Leach for their service.
Anybody second?
Second.
Okay, I will take a,
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I just want to make sure we don't have any public comment on the item
oh,
before we do
good
the vote.
idea.
There are no public comments for this item.
Do you guys know them? You want to say
Oh.
something? Okay.
I work with the South Bay Park and Conservancy as a student ambassador, and I think that Carl, he does like an insane amount, like more than almost anyone else in the entire, other than Aga, who's the president of South Bay Park and Conservancy, and she does a lot as well. And I mean, all the volunteers do a lot, but Carl definitely deserves to be recognized. He does so much for all of the different parks and especially for just the Conservancy in general. So I definitely think that Carl deserves that. So
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Nice, thank you.
Okay, why don't we do a roll call vote on this?
Commissioner Caldwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Lang,
Yes.
Commissioner Galassi,
Yes.
Vice Chair Morocco.
Yes, and I think you'll have to mention in the minutes that,
Macaulay
Commissioner-
has been recused.
yes. Okay,
Okay.
anything else on that one?
No, thank you. So if Commissioner McCauley can hear us, he can come back in. If I don't see him walk in, I'll go and grab him in just a moment.
Hmm.
I hear something.
Left.
Oh, here he is.
You can still hear it, yes.
Okay. So you can tell your son it was unanimous.
Congratulations.
Okay, that brings us to item L2. Got to get back to the screen. L2 is discussion and possible action regarding the prioritization of the markers for the Path of History program, and Jack's going to be doing that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So the Path of History program was a gift of the Leadership Redondo class of 2002, and it consists largely of a series of informational markers memorializing the deep history, certain elements, specific selected elements of Redondo's history. Currently, there are 10 installed. There's a list of 38, so there are 28 remaining to be installed. The city for this year's fiscal year has authorized $43,400 to install what that comes out to 8 of them?
Yes.
8. And basically, we are recommending that the commission direct us as to their preferred prioritizing of these of the next group of markers. And we further, to expedite the process, recommend that the commissioners direct the Bringing History Subcommittee to work directly with staff to work on the design, the selection of elements, content, and selecting locations and getting these things in as quickly as possible. That's what I've got, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
So I was involved in this when I was on the Historical Commission, so I'm going to fill in some of the blanks on it. And you had from last month the report from the committee dealing with it, and the prioritization is actually over there. I think we have 3 things that we have to do. One is the prioritization. The second is to come up with the process that we were doing, and you suggested something which I think we can expand on. We had talked once about whether we should have the commission micromanage certain things, but I think that this one can actually work with a process. And then the third one is, and I don't know if you have any materials with you, but there has been in the past 10 signs have been done with an outside vendor doing the work, the design work specifically. And There's been a proposal by the director of the community services to bring it in-house. So we would have a savings of about $1,500 per sign by bringing it in-house for that. Is that still on the table? Because I have not heard anything from Elizabeth directly on that.
Yes, it is
Okay.
still on the table.
So that's one of the other things we have to consider. There are some pluses and minuses to bringing it in-house. The cost savings is a definite plus. The concern ends up being bandwidth. You know, that does require, there's 2 staff people that I guess have graphic design skills, and that does involve a lot more staff time. I've been told by Elizabeth that it's not going to be a big a deal. And it does give us flexibility for actually having every single sign designed at some point, done internally. But my concern has always been, is it can be too much on the bandwidth.
Yeah, if I can speak to that, you know, the heavy weight of that is on the front end. It's designing the formatting, designing the background, this kind of static background for it. Once that's developed and formatted, adding in the photos that are selected and adding in the text is more about just sizing within there. And so there's not as much time allocated for every sign once that first one is done, and it's my understanding that a first one has been at least mocked up. I don't know exactly how final it is. So to your point, we are confident in the staff resources that we have to really get the design completed in-house. And it's our intention to do so, unless we come to a point where we can recognize that it is not working. I think the cost savings make sense at this point for us to continue doing that in-house.
Yeah, and the other point I do want to point out, this has always been up to us the last year, funded privately. So the prioritization came in, somebody wants to get a sign up, they're donating some money, they decided which sign they wanted, and that's how we started the fundraising process. This is, the city has actually budgeted money, so we're doing a different process this time. So since it's publicly done, I believe the mock-up shows that each one of you is going to have your name on all 8 signs, except for the Hotel Redondo one. What I would suggest, and I want to explain to you what I think the process should be and get your feedback, and then get the commission's feedback and the public's feedback. But on the design sign side of it, the writing and the pictures is the first stage, and I think the committee can compile the text and pictures from signs with the help of the research librarians, because the pictures are important, and the Historical Society, who also has some pictures. The hardest part is finding clear pictures and being able to attribute it to the right people. Once we compile the text and pictures, I guess you're going to be, either you or Elizabeth can be the one who preliminary approves the draft language. Commissioner Lang has been gracious and say that she will edit it into final format once we get all the language approved, and then it would go back to Elizabeth and Jack for final approval of it, so because they'll be the one interacting with the designers. And then, again, the design would be approved ultimately by Jack and Elizabeth, and then it would go to the fabricator. And that's the design component. And just so you know, unfortunately, we don't have the one out there anymore for the time being. The fabrication part, that's all city staff. They're going to be the one, we don't have to do anything with it. They're going to find, and it's probably going to be the people in Minnesota, I would think. They're going to be able to, the staff's going to decide, and that's going to be presented to the council to approve the payment to them. The polls are done by the Public Works Department. They order and take care of it. And then the site location, I'm going to recommend that the committee work with the Public Works Department, because they're the one who ultimately has to decide where to put it in the ground, and so it won't interfere with anything else there. There's 9 signs up now, so you can look around. There's a bunch over in the original town site. So that's what I'm recommending on the process. if you go to the page 43 of the materials, this is from a discussion we had in August with the director of the department, and these were the ones that were presented to the committee, and the committee said that that was good. What we do try to do is find things that people can look at, like the Rancho Sosol boundary. You stand on the hill and you can actually see the boundary between the two different ranchos there. So we're trying to do things where people can actually visualize it, and this was run by. So I guess the first vote would be in-house versus contract, and I would recommend, and I think Commissioner McCauley also, I don't know if we actually got to that decision because it was a fresh proposal, but I would think that we'd want to do it in-house. So if we can get, I'll make the motion to have it designed in-house. If I can get a second.
I'll second that.
Okay,
Can I ask a question real quick?
yes.
Do we as a commission, do we have authority to direct staff as to whether they should do it in-house or out?
No, and yes and no. The subcommittee is obviously here to help assist staff and help with whatever project they're tasked with. If the subcommittee feels that the way that the process is going is not working, or they have an alternate recommendation, they could certainly make that recommendation to staff, and we would work collectively to find a good solution. For the purposes of this, I don't think a formal vote to do it in-house is necessary, but I mean, if we're going to be doing that anyways, it sounds like everyone's in agreement anyway, so if
And
that
the
helps.
proposal came from staff to do it in-house.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I would prefer staff make that decision. It sounds like they made that decision. It sounds like we agree with that decision. So I don't know that a vote is necessary either.
Okay.
And if we want to move forward with that motion, I would make a second or alternate motion to just approve the sites,
Okay,
which is, I think, what you're trying to do.
the prioritization.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question too? A
Yes.
couple of questions. So I know sometimes when the city council allocates a certain amount of funding towards a project or whatever, it needs to be used within a certain time frame, otherwise the money goes away. Is this one of those projects, or can we just use this money do we have to hurry?
No, there's no rush. If we don't use it by the end of this fiscal year, we can carry it over into the next year. As long as we show progress and can verify that we will be spending it, we can carry it over. So there's no urgency.
Okay. And then I had another question about cost, just out of curiosity. So we have the amount of money that they allocated for this. So does the city basically, does like community services kind of submit like their cost in hours towards this budget, or is this just out of city funds? Like, is this just to go to the, signs being manufactured, or?
My
Jameson.
understanding of the estimate that was used to determine what that project cost would be for the council's allocation was not for the in-house staffing.
Okay.
But we can absorb that internally. Like I was saying, that first sign is really the heavy one. And
Yeah.
then after that, it's kind of plug and play and just kind of formatting the text to make sure it fits with the photo. So I don't think the staffing component is not a concern.
But probably the materials from Public Works.
Any,
for the
any
poles.
materials, manufacturing, fabrication, all of that, yes.
Okay, I was just asking to get an idea of how many we can actually get for 43,000, because I think there's only 8 here that are on the immediate agenda.
That's all the city committed to was 8, and based on the
Oh.
cost estimate. Yeah, and one of them is actually, I don't know if you've seen the Hotel Redondo, it's kind of been there for 20 plus years, and it gets a lot of weather, so that's going to be replaced. The mock-up is actually the Hotel Redondo one, so it's 1,500 for each sign. It was 4,500 for the fabrication, which is probably, given that it's coming to be shipped from Minnesota, it's going to cost a little bit more for that, but it's going to be no cost on the design sign. The
Okay.
posts are off-the-shelf stuff, and the Public Works has been ordering, and they have some in inventory, and then just sticking it in the ground. So those are the main costs on it.
Okay, I guess I was looking at that number and thought that the cost per sign would be smaller. My other question is I remember you talking about the Path of History signs at Dominguez Park. Is this different?
It's different.
Okay.
Yeah, we had voted the last time, and we'll be talking about that if you stick around later. But yeah, it's different.
Okay, those are all my questions.
And each one, and by the way, while we're designing it, we're still gonna be able to collect private donations for private signs as well. Like we got last year, 2 years ago, we had the one down in Riviera Village with the beach house. That was the subject of an article in the newspaper. That was people that came up and donated the cost of it, so it has their name on there.
Nice.
Okay, so I'm comfortable, as you said, this is going in the house. And if you all comfortable, you don't have to have a vote on that. But the prioritization, we probably should vote because that is coming out of public money. And that's where we're going to be putting the effort to write, find pictures, and do that. So if we can have a vote on the prioritization, again, which you have a complete list of the markers, and you have the suggested prioritization on page 43.
So we had a motion and a second, so, and then you made a subsequent,
What I said was that if we want to vote on the motion, I would make a substitute motion to just do the prioritization of but I would ask that we just retract or take back the motion, the original motion, and just do this.
okay.
Okay, so there's been a motion to prioritize based on what's on page 43. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second that.
Any public comment?
There are no public comments or attendees for this item.
Okay, I'm seeing head shakes in the audience. Why don't we just do a roll call at this point?
Commissioner Caldwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Lang,
Yes.
Commissioner Galassi,
Yes?
Commissioner McCauley,
Yes.
Vice Chair Morocco.
Yes. Okay, so that passes. And then the next thing is the process, which I described. If you're all okay with that, I would move that we adopt that process. I would be more concerned with Mr. McCauley has some concerns on it because it does put the burden on the committee to write up the stuff initially. Okay, not hearing anything.
Commissioner Morocco, if I can just interject for a moment. When you briefly mentioned that Commissioner Lang was willing to review the information, I do not see her listed on the subcommittee. Is she becoming part of the subcommittee, or is that just an extra?
Just bringing her in because she has wonderful
would like to.
editing skills. The biggest concern, obviously, is you put a sign out in the public.
Yeah.
It has to be approved by the city in order to be able to be out there. So we can get you something that'll get approved, but we have somebody who's really good at editing, which will make the staff's job a lot easier. So it's like, okay, we'll just start with the design and she'll come into the process
Yeah.
just to edit.
No, I think it's great. I think it's wonderful. I just, I would recommend officially adding her to the subcommittee if she's willing to, only because let's say down the road, another commissioner wants to add themselves to that subcommittee. She then could not be part of those discussions because then you would have more than 3 people working on a single subcommittee project. Is that?
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's a risk that someone?
So that's where I just want to be sure that we're not overlapping in any way on that. So,
Volunteer for the staff, so I don't know.
but she's
I will
still a
leave it
member
to
of the
her.
commission,
It's her
so.
choice.
Yeah.
We left it that anybody can get on
I mean-
any subcommittees that they want to.
Yeah, I mean, if that you think is the appropriate thing to do, I'm happy to join the subcommittee. I would defer to you both on the content, essentially, and I'm happy to
Yeah,
edit
we
it.
just want you to edit it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, I'm happy to join.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
We're trying
Okay.
to save time on the city side.
I know, and I appreciate that. No, we appreciate it very much.
Okay,
Okay.
and whoever doing the minutes, I will get the process part to them so you can put it in the minutes so it's clear. So I guess I moved, there was a second, then there was public comment. Can we have a vote on it?
Can I make one comment?
Yes, please.
And I apologize. I'll just say something now because I'll be here for a couple of years and I won't have to repeat it. But I accepted this appointment to serve on this commission. I've been serving on the Preservation Commission for some time. And I'm very concerned at some of our conversations, just over the past 3 or 4 meetings, about the line between the commission and staff. And the city manager runs the city and is responsible to the city council and to the public and to the commissions. But the staff works for the city manager. And we can help and we could provide guidance. We can make votes and we can make recommendations. But ultimately, it is on staff to implement. And I just want to make, that's my position. I'll remind people, I guess, as needed. Because ultimately, if we're going to be putting signs in the community, it's going to be the direction from this commission to city staff, and staff is going to be implementing that. And I think that they're going to be the ones that are responsible for what that sign looks like. So I appreciate that everybody wants to provide input, and I think anybody would love to have great editing skills and input there. But I just want to make sure that as we give direction as a commission, that's my expectation, is that the city manager will ensure that those things are implemented and that staff who works through the city manager will get things done. But I would suggest that we leave it to that so that they can be the implementers.
Yeah, this is a good point. And actually in Rec and Parks, this came up quite a bit. And we really looked to Kelly. She was our, what do you call it? Our staff liaison, yeah. We really looked to her before we made, I think that this is what we did. We asked her if it was appropriate, the information we were asking, and we're really cognizant of their time and not wanting to overburden them with requests or ask if we were allowed to make that request, to respect their position and understand where the line is sort of drawn. So I mean, I would just invite any staff that is in here, because Kelly was really good at helping guide us on how to sort of navigate this. So I would welcome Dana and, whatever other city staff that is here discussing these topics to kind of, if they understand what we want to accomplish, to, help us.
Well, also we have the blending of the different commissions. Like the Historical Commission has some obligations that it has to do, right? And that's kind of new to us from our commissions, and same with the Preservation Committee as well. There are very specific details and whatnot. And so in navigating that from staff is I'm leaning towards them just as I'm learning, catching up to speed. But for sure, I see our body as, we're here to advise and consent, and didn't do what we can to assist them as well. And so, as much as, I always think of like our commission, the pecking order, right? Like we send it up to the city council and it's up to them on a lot of issues, or it's up to staff, or it's up to funding, if there's funding and whatnot. So it's just, I understand what you're saying. I agree, because in a way also to speed up meetings as well, to kind of know the boundaries. And so, and I think we're kind of doing that in these first few meetings. I think we're kind of hitting the guardrails and whatnot. So I think staff's been doing a great job as well on kind of keeping us, because it's like all different representatives as well that we have to have. So, but going forward, I think that this is a unique committee or commission here, that there's a lot going on that are different stuff. So,
And to alleviate your concern on this one, this is on our agenda because the Community Services Director said, bring it to your commission, decide the priorities, figure out the process you want to do. I try to, in the way I deal with the city staff, is minimum touch points, that if I can do it as a volunteer, rather than taking up, Jack's time to draft all these reports, and I think I did it with you when you were our liaison, I will try to do as much as I can so that they don't have to spend a lot of time doing it. But on this thing, the final approval does need the city's stamp of approval. And I know that the city manager is at least aware of what we're doing, as well as the community services director. The only people that are probably going to be not happy is the library staff is going to have to help us. We'll find pictures and.
I will say that they're always happy to help. It's one of their strong points, and they really like to see the projects come to fruition. We're happy to be a part of it. Thank you.
Yeah. And they actually helped write a lot of the materials that were used in the old signs that we put up. So I think we still need a vote, don't we? Are there any other questions, concerns?
Can you repeat the motion?
The motion is to adopt a process regarding the writing and the pictures, that the committee compiles the text and pictures for the sign with the help of the research librarians and the Historical Society. Whatever is written gets approved by Jack or Elizabeth. They can decide who they want to approve it. The draft language, once they approve the draft language, it goes to Commissioner Lang for edits on it, and then it gets back to for final approval by Elizabeth and Jack, who will then direct it to the in-house design team that has been set up by the community services director. And once they finish the design, then it's approved by the staff people to be able to be put up, and then we work, and then it gets to the fabricator, whoever the city decides is the appropriate fabricator. So that's the process, and that's what you're voting on. Okay.
Right. Commissioner Caldwell.
I'm going to vote no. I'm supportive of this effort, but I would have preferred to just prioritize it, allow staff to create and implement that process, and allow those commissioners that want to be a part of that process to volunteer to work with staff and coordinate. I don't know that this commission needs to define that process for them. So for that reason, I'm voting no.
Commissioner Lang.
Yes.
Commissioner Galassi.
I hear what Commissioner Caldwell is saying, and I do agree with it, because I do remember our city manager reminding us that we do not direct, we advise. And this, as much as I am in support of the plan itself, I agree with the message that Commissioner Caldwell is saying, and I'm going to vote no along with him.
Commissioner McCauley.
I'm going to vote no as well.
Because we've already taken a vote, can we still ask questions on this? Or, yeah? So because we have a subcommission of, that's dealing specifically with these path of history markers, isn't their task, by definition of their subcommittee, to work on these? Or, and is the staff wanting to be heavily involved? I mean, I don't really understand, I guess, where the motion is sort of problematic to directing the staff. I mean, is it just that we've identified the process and we're saying, this is what we recommend, and you guys don't like that we've identified the process for the city? Is that what you're kind of saying? You want them to identify the process for us?
I'll try to answer it because it was my position. I don't want to put this on staff. As a staff member of the city, there's a lot of pressure on them, and they do an excellent job, by the way.
Thank you.
And they're trying to implement the directives of the commission as well as the city council. But the process that was outlined there was a pretty extensive process. And by making a motion and directing them on behalf of the commission to do it as stated, does not allow them to take into account how to get things done quickly, how to do things properly. I mean, I would suggest this, if somebody on this commission was to draft something for that sign and it gets placed on that sign because we drafted it and we put it on there, if there was something that could be construed as inappropriate or problematic or incorrect, we've just paid $1,500 for a sign, and whose fault is that? I can tell you that none of us, we may get removed, but very few of us will get fired or reprimanded. It could be a staff member. And so all I'm suggesting is that we've prioritized it for them, so now they know the task at hand. And I would trust in city staff to outline their process and how they want to do it and get feedback, because we have commissioners that are very passionate about these things and want to be involved and want to volunteer and assist. And I don't think city staff would object to that or say no to that. But I think the act of making a motion and voting for it, it defines that process. And I would expect that if we pass a motion that defines that process, I would expect staff to implement that process as we've made a motion to do so, which doesn't allow them to change it or expedite it or do anything under their daily task list and workload to implement it.
Okay, so, I mean, they're not going to print something that is inappropriate or, I mean, I guess my understanding of the motion that we just voted on, it doesn't bind them in terms of having to print what in my mind, we're just volunteering to do the work for them. And if they don't need us to formalize that offer, then I would like them to step in, because I think so often there's a lot of things we would like to do as a commission, but recognize that the staff has such limited time and they're stretched so thin. And so sort of like formalizing, oh, we would like to help with this. That's what I saw the intent of that motion, not to handcuff them and be like, we're the end all be all. And actually, I think we've been told multiple times that we don't have that kind of power. So I'm under no assumption that we sort of do. But yeah.
If I may, this is a tricky item in the sense of kind of where this conversation is going. I do want to point out that our recommendation in the report is that the commission considers assigning the Path of History work to become part of the bringing history to public spaces. I think I have the title incorrectly, but the commission the committee that we're discussing, that the Path of History project would be assigned to that committee. In doing so, we as staff could work with that subcommittee whenever we need to. And in the report, we say that this committee would work directly with staff on developing the content, historical accuracy of the information, selection of images, and sign placement. And so we as staff, we don't want to, especially for something that's so public-facing as this Path of History program, we don't want to do this in a silo. We really want to go to you all who are experts in the community on so many different avenues. We want your input and we want your buy-in on what we are posting on this signage. And so if it gives any comfort, I do support staff working with the subcommittee on this. I think it's appropriate to do so. We as staff will certainly take charge of the items that we are responsible for, and we'll take task to make sure those get accomplished. And we'll go back to the committee to ask for guidance on any items that we need that assistance on. The alternative here is that we could work on this independently as staff. And once we get the content developed and once we get the design done, we bring the sign back to the commission for approval, and it's the entire commission reviews the signage. That's a different process. There's pros and cons with that. It would take a little bit more time. So what we were hoping by doing is involving the subcommittee on the front end and throughout it really helps us make sure that we have the assistance and buy-in of the commission. And then we can really get some of these signs put in as quickly as possible. So all that to say, I do support working with the subcommittee. I think it makes sense. And we will support the committee as much as we possibly can on everything that we can for that project.
And since I haven't voted, and so we still are in the process that I described, the only direction to staff is you have the authority to approve any language, any design. That's what their job is. So we're not telling them, hey, we're giving it to you, you have to approve it. You get to decide when it is. That's always been the case. They get to decide. That's the only thing that the staff's interaction other than the librarians is. So again, I think the process at least makes it clear that staff is not going to be the one that's going to be spending all their time writing the material and doing that. It's going to be separated out, but they still retain the ability to say yes or no at any juncture in the process. And that's what I was trying to do with that.
So just a process then, we'll finish up the vote. So Vice Chair Morocco.
I vote yes, and if somebody wants to change their vote, I'll entertain that as well. Because otherwise, I don't know what the process is at that point. It falls on Jack as the historical person to start developing the content.
I think staff just said that they can and support working with the subcommittee. So I would expect that if you're on the subcommittee, you'll get a phone call and you can assist them. And do everything that you've outlined there. It just wouldn't be directed by motion. And in fact, if you want, I could make, because that motion failed to pass, I could make a motion to support staff's recommendation as was read.
No, there's a second.
I would support that. I would support that.
Okay, any public discussion?
There are no public comments or attendees for this item.
Okay, now you get an opportunity to explain what the process is that you're in your motion.
I think she just read the staff recommendation.
From the agenda item, it was that the Path of History program development would be assigned to the Bringing History to Public Spaces Committee, and that staff would work directly with that committee to develop the content, historical accuracy, selection of images, and sign placement for the program. For the 8 prioritized signs that were recently motioned.
Okay. Why don't you roll call again?
Okay. Commissioner Caldwell.
Yes.
Commissioner Lang.
Yes.
Commissioner Galassi.
Yes.
Commissioner McCauley.
Yes.
Vice Chair Morocco.
Yes. Okay. On to the next item then, which is item L3. Possible action to approve recommendation of the city's birthday celebration and ad hoc subcommittee to allocate not to exceed $3,000 for expenses related to the birthday party. I don't know who's doing that one. Okay, great.
Yes, last meeting, an ad hoc subcommittee was created with Commissioners Rowe and Yousafzai, and I've subsequently met with them virtually, and they discussed what their preferences are, what their participation could be in terms of snacks, food, entertainment, who was going to set up tables, chairs, things like that. And it was, the point of this was to develop a not to exceed number, and staff concurs with the ad hoc subcommittee that $3,000 is a workable number and within budget.
Okay. Any questions, comments? No questions? Okay, I have a couple of questions. Last year's cost was how much?
I believe they were between 2,000 and 2,500, somewhere around there. I don't have the exact number, but I know it did not exceed 3,000.
Okay, and I've already talked with one of the staff people that you guys are going to do the publicity and start on that pretty soon. The $20,000, what is that? Where
Oh,
did
that's
that
just the
come from?
total budget of that division of the city. And so they're identifying the fact that, yes, we have the money to do this.
So that's community service money, or is that like for historical?
Yeah, it's under the Cultural Arts Division.
Okay. And you have a breakdown of like what you anticipate that's going to be?
Commissioner Yusufzai had started on a matrix, assuming that an attendance level, he had several different projected attendance levels. We decided to go with the low one at this point. So we would rather run out of stuff on a successful event than be saddled with a bunch of things we couldn't return afterwards, like food. So assuming the 200 crowd, they had a balloon and face paint artist that I believe was in the $600 range. They were looking at the stilt walker return for $500. And then the rest of it was food. And additionally, Chief Hoffman of the police department has agreed to provide their community wagon that they send out, and it will provide popcorn free of charge. And then I think those are the primary elements with cost, food and drink.
Okay. And is library staff coming for that?
Oh, we hope to be invited. We'll be there with bells on if invited.
Okay. And you said there's food included?
Big pardon?
You said there's food included in this budget?
Yes, there will be snacks. I wouldn't call it exactly a meal, but there will be light snacks and refreshments and free popcorn.
Okay, because a couple of years ago, they were talking about having food trucks come down there too.
Yeah, that didn't come up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys have any comments? And thank you for staying as long as you have. It's really enjoyable.
Hi, I'm Christina. I've never heard of the city birthday party celebration before, and I was wondering, like, is this like a community event, or is there a certain invite list?
So the city, have you been to Dominguez Park and the historical houses that are over there?
I believe so, yes.
So the museum runs part of it, the Historical Society runs the other house, and it's April 29th is the birthdays of the city. So every year we kind of put something together to celebrate the birthday.
Oh, cool. So it's like an open to anyone?
It's open to anybody. You're encouraged to come to the museum as often as you want. Bring your friends. It's a nice little bit of history that gets shared. The guy on the stilts actually is a juggler too, I believe.
Yes.
And you get your pictures taken with the fire department usually comes out in full force. The Historical Society has birthday cake that they assemble out there. So it's a nice event. 200 would be really nice to get that many people there, but and it's between 11 and 3, I think, this year.
Yeah, it's April 26th, this Saturday, between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m.
Okay.
And it's located adjacent to Dominguez Park.
Okay, and then I know you guys mentioned there's like a publicity kind of team for that. How are you guys publicizing? Because I personally haven't heard of it, so I don't know if there's any.
I'm sorry.
So we're still developing the flyer. Part of what we need to do is figure out what our total budget is so that we know what to include on the flyer. So hopefully tonight we get some guidance from the commission, and then we will start posting the flyer at the museum. We'll also get it on the city webpage. We do have a city and our department's social media pages, as well as a Teens and Redondo social media. I don't know if you're a member of that one, but you should look that one up for sure. And then just anywhere else that we could think to post, just to inform the community.
Awesome. I'll definitely look out for that.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
And Michelle said you could put it on the cable TV.
I believe she has the information on that, yes.
Okay, great. Okay, is there any other public comment?
There are no other public comments.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the recommendation to allocate not to exceed $3,000 for expenses related to the birthday party celebration?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Want to do the roll call again?
Absolutely. Commissioner Caldwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Lang,
Yes.
Commissioner Galassi,
Yes.
Commissioner McCauley,
Yes.
Vice Chair Morocco.
Yes. Okay, so that passes as well, which brings us to L4, Commission Subcommittee Review and Project Update. Let's see if we have a report on that. We don't have a report. So let's see, we already had the minor review committee. We kind of dealt with the bringing history to the community. I believe there's one other
The
development of facilities, yeah.
users. I just, the update is just that things are ongoing, the leagues are ongoing. We haven't heard any negative or anything that needs to be brought up. I do have one referral for staff, but later.
Okay, well, that's the next thing on the agenda. So can we receive,
Oh,
go ahead.
Can I ask one more question about the subcommittee? I had a question about the Franklin Park Playground
Just about to ask.
Commission. I would like to join it. Like I said, I missed last meeting and I read the minutes, but they were unclear. So anyway, I don't know if I can request to join that now or
Yeah.
what the process
We
would be.
can actually take.
Yeah, I believe there's only 2 commissioners serving on that. Dean, I don't know if you recall how many were selected for that, but as long as there was 2.
For which subcommittee?
The Franklin Park Subcommittee.
Don't have it on my screen. I'll have to go back to my notes.
It's in the minutes,
Should be on the
actually.
minutes.
It's, there's actually 3 commissioners, McCauley, Galassi, and Caldwell are on that,
Oh, so I can't join.
Correct, yeah.
unless somebody wants to step down.
I was on the last subcommittee and I really liked it. It was for Dominguez Park. So
Okay, so,
take your spot if you don't want it. I'm just putting it out there.
Oh, yeah. you
For
can
next
take-
time.
You can take mine.
I can?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah, because I'm on the history and then I'm on the facility users.
Okay, if you're sure. I'm
Yeah,
not,
that's
I don't
fine.
want to take it away from you. Okay,
No, I mean, it's I'll monitor the progress. through
okay,
What's going on.
okay, great.
okay, so I guess we,
we
since
vote
we
on that?
voted
Yes.
people in, so we should just vote to replace
Replace.
Commissioner McCauley with Commissioner Lang. So, I
A
don't-
motion to switch commissioners, McCauley for Lang for the Franklin Commission, Subcommittee.
okay, I'll second that. Any public comment?
There are no public comments.
Okay, this one I think is going to be unanimous, so is there any opposition to making the switch?
No.
Okay, then congratulations. Okay, now we're going, I don't think there's any other commission subcommittee reports. Can we change it to committee reports as opposed to subcommittees? I mean, it just.
Sure.
Okay, so items from staff.
We don't have any items, but I do want to just mention that we do anticipate the city manager will be here next meeting to discuss the budget and receive input from commission. And we hope to also have a copy of the strategic plan to get input from this commission on items related to the areas of purview of the Public Amenities Commission in regards to the strategic plan. So we hope to have those 2 items, and I'm sure there'll be others, but I wanted to mention those in advance so that you can at least think about them and maybe prepare some questions or be a little bit more prepared than usual. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Order, do you have anything you want to?
I don't have any tonight.
No? Okay. So then we'll move on to commission members' item and future commission agenda topics. Commissioner Caldwell, do you have anything?
None. Thank you.
Commissioner Lang?
I have a couple questions. So I see that we have a library director's report in each agenda, but I'm trying to understand, since we're made up now of so many previous commissions, we used to get a recreation and parks sort of report. And so I'm wondering if we can still receive a report on recreation and parks and put it in the agenda. Yeah. And then.
Well, I don't want to commit. I don't want to commit for liaison. I was shaking my head where, I mean, we're
Well,
fine with
I
it, but
thought it was something you did anyway. but
Yes,
you
yes.
don't?
No, Dana was correct. Yeah, we can 100% provide that. And typically we do. I think this is the first agenda besides the very first one that we haven't. And that was purely an oversight on my part. But yes, we would normally have upcoming events, just, feedback information. We would include a similar report.
Okay. And then my other item was I was hoping that we could also ping Public Works about servicing the bathrooms at Alta Vista. Just there's so many people going through there right now. It's baseball season, and they're always kind of messy. And then on the agenda, if we could include the Franklin Park Subcommittee under that L4 now.
oh, absolutely.
And then also at the bottom, it says the next meeting of the Redondo Beach Blank Commission will be a regular meeting held at blank time.
Yeah, I apologize for that. We usually do a pretty good job catching those things, but that is an oversight.
It's a
I
new
apologize.
commission.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It's new. So we didn't know what time we were meeting, but
Oh, I
yeah. And I think that's it for me.
Okay, Commissioner Gillespie?
I was wondering if we could get an update on the RFP for the sound study at Alta Vista. A lot of people have been
I know.
emailing me, texting me, posting.
Yeah, I actually just got an update this afternoon, so I will update our pickleball webpage, hopefully tomorrow, if not by early next week. We finally were able to refine the scope for the sound study, and the agreement has been submitted to the city attorney's office for review. We're hoping to take that, we're planning to take that to the council for approval in April, and then we could do the sound study very quickly after that. So we're hoping to really gain some momentum on that in the next month or so.
What does very quickly, what does that mean in city terms?
I mean, because this is really the contractor coming out and basically doing the sound study, unless there's a heavy lift on the staff side, which I don't anticipate, it's really up to the contractor's availability, how quickly they can come out. So we would work with them to get them out as quickly as they can.
Thank you.
Of course.
Anything else?
Yeah, for, just to follow up on the speed remedies for Alta Vista Park, has there been any progress or?
Last I heard, which was sometime last month, was that Public Works was getting some additional staff resources onboarded, and this was one of the priority projects that they were going to be assigned to. So I was told to expect within the next 30 to 60 days some movement on that project as well.
Oh, cool. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Anything else? Okay, I got a couple questions about when things are going to show up on the agenda. So we had the Wilderness Park landmark that we discussed December, I believe, was in the meeting, and we were going to talk about doing that. Is that coming up on the agenda pretty soon?
I'll follow up with the department, but my understanding is yes.
Okay. We also last month voted on that walking timeline. Is that going to come up on the agenda? And I guess I should look towards Director Orta for that.
Yeah, I don't know exactly the timing, but that is definitely on our list for upcoming items.
Do you know if that's also going to be subject to an in-house design? I know that you had discussed when I was on the Historical Commission about using the sign shop for that. Is that going to be in-house design?
It potentially could be. We haven't really circled back on that since we talked about it maybe, 2 years ago? So it could be an option, but I can't say with certainty right now.
Okay, then there's the inventory, since we're going to have to come up with some of the pictures and stuff. Is there a way to access the inventory for the Historical Museum to find pictures and see what we can use?
For the
For Path of History stuff.
Are you talking about the stuff that's currently at the
Performing Arts Center? Yeah.
Yes, certainly.
Okay, great.
Absolutely.
And I believe that some of the historical stuff is actually in banks around the city as well. So I'm going to start asking some of them.
Not aware of that.
Ito Open Space, I don't know what the status is on that. It's been approved by Parks and Recs, by Public Arts and by the Historical Commission, and it's been budgeted for some work on it. So do you know what the status is?
I am not, I don't know what the status of that. I know, as you stated, there was some funding allocated to that project, which if I recollect correctly, a lot of that was going to be through the assistance of our Public Works team. So we would have to circle back with them and determine what those next steps were.
Okay, it'll probably end up being brought up at our committee meeting as well, but we do have Asian American Pacific Islander month coming up in May, and it would be nice to at least announce it to the public that we're starting on the process. Fabricator for those path of history markers. I know when Gary was here, he was working on contacting fabricators and getting estimates. Do you know of anything that's been happening with that?
Last I heard, we were looking at somebody the city had already used before, Backer Signs. And they put up signs that were close to the Esplanade and lasted longer with less deterioration. And so that was kind of the lean at this point.
Okay. Museum census, you had mentioned last time about clickers for the museum. I know that that was in Gary's initial report that we're trying to get more people in there, but we need to understand the flow. So do you have any news on that?
We had talked briefly, Kelly and I think she had some alternative recommendations. They do have a guest book, and we could certainly include that information. I think staff-wise, we could either include it in our library matrix, or we could include it in a separate matrix, or we can include it in a separate consent report. However, staff would feel more comfortable handling that.
Yes.
Okay. Certified annual report to the state, just so everybody on here is aware, the state of California gets a report that includes personal information about each one of us in the report. I've asked the Public Works people if we can get that in advance of what they're going to be submitting, at least as to ourselves. So if we need to change it, or if we've taken classes that need to be included, we can actually contribute that to them. But it usually goes out in May, and I think at some point they actually come back and present it to us, but I think it's been submitted at that point. So just be aware that's out there. I have last year's if you want to see I have your whole biography and every bit of information about it. Then Riviera Park plaques. So I've been getting calls from and emails from the guy who came and presented us several months ago. And he says nobody's responding to him. So do you have anything that if he's listening, he can know what's going on?
Yeah, I know that Commissioner Lang worked with him and has been communicating with him on the language. It sounds like there's been some agreements on some draft language. I owe a call to Commissioner Lang to further discuss the project and figure out how we want to proceed with that plaque. So I will circle back with Commissioner Lang and we'll get that moving forward again.
Okay. Next thing is the park ranger program that's kind of gets brought up every now and then, and it kind of just disappears. And it sounds like a great idea. So I'm hoping that I can
It's
get a
definitely
status on that.
on our radar. It's it's just a prioritization. So.
Okay. I ran this by Commissioner Lang before we started, but there's a really nice grassy area with a beautiful tree right out in front of the library on Carmelian. And it would be nice, I don't know how we dedicate parks, but that would be a nice park to have as like the Bill Brand Civic Center Park. And it's got a tree, it's got grass. And then for public arts, it also has a space for a mural. So you could actually add that in there. So I don't know what the process is to start to recommending it, but I'm throwing it out to you to see if you have any ideas.
Not off the top of my head, but I'll consider. The only thing I could think of is that might be a good suggestion for budget discussions for the city council. If they want to consider doing that, they could allocate some funding. But other than that, I would have to kind of think about how we would approach that.
Okay, so I'll reach out to you to talk about
Sure.
that.
Is that considered a park?
I don't know. That's part of what I would need to look at. I don't know if it's been formally designated or if it's just open
It can be
space.
designated. It's just a question of how do you do that?
Yeah,
So-
I just need to see what it currently is so that we know what we can do from that
There's
point.
a dirt
I'm
park
familiar
that's
with
right
that.
outside the storage yard, so parks come in all shapes and sizes, and that's a nice dedicated space to it. Is there any way, because was really bad set of minutes, is there any way that we can get the minutes posted outside so that we can get access to them well before the meeting? So if we have specific changes or want to swap it out, we can actually do that?
Yeah, I'll have to review that, certainly with city clerk. There's been, some reassignments among the folks that draft the minutes. And generally, to be fair, I think when it was just the library commission and we were a little bit better staffed, we would go through those minutes in addition to before we'd bring them. So this is something that didn't happen, that falls on me. And so I would definitely consult with city staff, but then in addition to that, we're going to try to do a better job of just reviewing them internally as well to ensure that they're accurate. And again, I take full responsibility for that. But we'll work again with city clerk and we'll see what sort of options we have as far as getting them out sooner for review, but also to get them more accurate. Our intent, of course, is to, the goal is to have them accurate and ready for approval. And the errors, we expect that there'll be some errors, but the errors tonight were just unacceptable. And again, I take responsibility for that.
I know we pay somebody to
No,
actually
I
draft
know,
it.
but we need to review them too as a quality control. And we should not, you do a lot of hard work here and, it's a balance. And like I said, we'll follow up with city staff, but we should be bringing you as accurate minutes as possible. And, if there's a small error here or there, or we didn't get to capture the motions correctly, I think that's probably going to happen, but they should be a lot more accurate. So thank you.
Okay. And then my last thing is, I think after the discussion today that we had with the people from the planning department, it would be nice to have a landmark and naming committee that would actually make, last month we had somebody come in here to talk about historic home, but there was no history presented about it. So I think that having a committee that actually can do the research and assist the city staff, not direct them, but assist them, identify the history of the people that have lived there, the various resources. And as we heard today, that landmarks are more than just homes. They can be buildings, they can be trees. We have one tree already designated as a historic landmarks. They can be sites. There's a lot of Native American sites around here. And that we can assist the city staff in preparing a binder of all of our historic resources that has history so that if somebody comes to the city and wants to do something, there's a ready-made process. Now, whether we do it or not, I'm going to be doing that on my own time anyway, because I think the history is fascinating with some of the homes that we have here. But I think it would be great with regards to if other people wanted to participate in that.
Well, I think with respect to the homes that come before us for designation, that was, Stacy was doing that as part of the whole report. So
Right.
it was staff that was taking care of that. And, maybe they don't know that that was happening, but that's what was happening.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm volunteering to assist them any way I can in getting the history out there. The people that came last month, they actually have a very interesting history of their house and the people that lived there and their articles about it. So I'm hoping that we actually can get a group of people that want to help draft these up, but I'd like to be able to just have something for the city staff so they can rely on. Otherwise, we don't get the full story of the property or the neighborhood or the site itself. And it creates historical content for the city as well, which is the other thing that just know I'm interested in always promoting. So think about it. I'm not asking you to agendize it, but it's something that if you want, anybody wants to join me on that process, I'm happy to do.
Could I, if you're, are you done or?
Yeah, you wanted to
Okay.
have something else
Yeah,
to
because
add?
something popped into my mind that I knew I wanted to ask a question about. So a few weeks ago, Mayor Light had posted about that property that is on Redondo, Catalina, North Francisca, that SCE has now given us the permission to landscape. And somebody had asked a question, so I thought I'd toss it out there for consideration. Somebody asked if it was possible to potentially put 1 or 2 pickleball courts in that area. I know that there are power lines there, so
Yeah.
that might not be possible, but I thought I'd ask.
Yeah. The quick answer is I don't know. I do know there are limitations with that site because of the power lines. Any location under the power lines are very limited on what can be installed directly underneath. So the short answer, I'm not too sure, but my gut is saying that I don't know if those can be installed directly underneath. So if there
Right.
is some adjacent pieces or kind of parcels of it that potentially, but even that, I don't know if there's even plans for the future of that site specifically, so.
Well, from what Mayor Light had written, it appeared that, or it felt as if there was, going to be some fast forward motion in, approving funding for the landscaping and all of that. So maybe if we could get some more information, if the commission could be updated in a more formal way, that would be great.
Yeah, I can try
that
and
way.
find some information and see where that project, the progress of that.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else from anybody? And you guys have been great staying around. Anything you guys want to add? Any
It
questions?
was interesting.
Okay, then I guess I will read the part about the next meeting of Redondo Beach. Public Amenities Commission will be a regular meeting at 6:30 PM on, what's the date?
April 9th.
April 9th, wow.
Right around the
2025 in the Redondo Beach Council Chambers at 415 Diamond Street, Redondo Beach. It's the intention of the city of Redondo Beach to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act in all respects. If any attendee or participant at the meeting, you will need, or participant at this meeting, you will need special assistance beyond what is normally provided. The city will attempt to accommodate you in every reasonable manner. Please contact the city clerk's office, 310-318-0656, at least 48 hours prior to the meeting to inform us of your particular needs and to determine if accommodation is feasible. Please advise us at the time if you will need accommodations to attend or participate in meetings on a regular basis. An agenda packet is available 24 hours at www.redondo.org under the city clerk. You may want to clean up some of that language in there. So can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
And is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we got everybody seconding, so if no objections, then we'll adjourn the meeting at approximately 8:19 PM. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.